Over Easter 2004, 4 Melbourne amateurs set off on an IOTA expedition to Baudin Rocks, Oscar Charlie 228. Access to the rocks would be by boat, and the nearest harbour was located in the township of Rome, South Australia, about a 7-hour drive from Melbourne. This is not a new IOTA. In April 1999, a group of amateurs operated from Granite Island, near Victor Harbour. This expedition included Martin, Golf 3 Zulu Alpha Yankee, operating as Victor Kilo 4, Charlie Alpha Yankee, portable VK5. Martin's operation was for a limited number of hours, making it a relatively rare group. To make the IOTA worthwhile, the operators would need to be able to stay on the island for several days and nights. As Baudin Rocks is a wildlife reserve, camping is normally prohibited, and a permit was required from Park South Australia. For an activation of this type, 4 operators is an ideal number. Leading the team was Peter VK3QI, a semi-retired school teacher and also a keen DXer who has worked all current countries on both phone and CW. He was also part of the VI3JPI Oscar Charlie 251 Julia Percy Island and VI5WCP Oscar Charlie 261 Waldegrave Island expeditions. Peter's passion is CW, and he was expecting to work the bulk of CW contacts. Keith VK3FT, a high-ranking officer in the Victoria Police, just loves to operate on the HF bands. Keith is also a member of the WA Victoria Council. This is his 3rd IOTA, as he was part of a team that activated Gabo Island Oscar Charlie 196, followed by VI5WCP Oscar Charlie 261. New to the team was Tony VK3TZ. Founder of Rippletech Electronics, Tony is a keen DXer, HF contester and antenna experimenter. His knowledge would be very valuable to the team. Also, Tony is no slouch when it comes to CW, so he would be assisting Peter with the CW part of the expedition. The 4th member of the team was Jack VK3WW, a locksmith and Federal WIA ARDF coordinator. He was on his 3rd IOTA, for he was also part of the Julia Percy and Waldegrave Island expeditions. Being a keen portable operator, Jack has been part of the VK3ER club contesting team for many years. His role on the expedition was to ensure the operating environment was suitable, and he was also expected to operate while some of the others rested. In his free time, he was responsible for the video footage. There was a 5th member of the expedition. To have a successful expedition, a pilot is required. This role was managed by David VK3EW. David is a well-known local and international DXer. His role as pilot is to keep the crew informed of band and weather conditions, also answer any queries or requests from other amateurs. He also keeps an ear on the dog piles and assists when they become chaotic. In September 2003, Peter and some of the team attempted to activate Baudin Rocks, but due to inclement weather, the expedition was postponed. The team should not have been concerned about the weather this time, as landing on the island was not as difficult as expected. Our transport was supplied by Mark Kassenbaum from the Rogue Fishing and Charter Service. It was a 9-kilometre trip to the island. Upon arriving, a dinghy was launched. This will be used to transfer the equipment to the tiny beach on the island. After 7 trips, all the equipment and operators were on the island. As there was no shelter on the island, it was important to get the main operating tent erected. Once this was done, the team split up into groups to work on the station and antenna installations. Before leaving Melbourne, Peter had informed the amateur community that VI5BR would commence transmission at 0700 hours Zulu. This left the team about 6 hours to get ready. Baudin rocks is a small group of rocks named by Matthew Flinders after his meeting with the French explorer Nicolas Baudin in 1802. VI5BR was operating from the northern rock, about 300 metres long and 50 metres wide. The beach at low tide was 100 metres long and 30 metres wide. That afternoon the expedition were expecting a very high tide, so the sleeping tents were not erected until the high tide mark was reached. This turned out to be a wise move, for at high tide the beach was reduced to about 30 metres long and 6 metres wide. The high tide was not all bad. When the tide was at its peak, the base of the high-gain Patriot vertical antenna was surrounded by water. We were not the only inhabitants of Baudin Rocks. Keith thought he would have a closer look at the large male Australian fur seals that were sharing the beach with us. Most of the time the seals were quite content just to sleep, but occasionally there were some territory issues to be sorted out. There was plenty of bird life on and around the island. But the noisiest of all would have to be the little birds, better known as fairy penguins. What may not be known is that about 3:30 AM they make a lot of noise as they prepare to head out to sea for the day. With the penguins nesting only metres from the tents, the Short Path Europe shift found there was no need for an alarm clock. For this expedition, 3 working stations were assembled. Station 1, which operated phone on the 10, 15 and 20 metre bands, consisted of an IC706 transceiver, Hale headset, MFJ 986 tuner and an Mtron DX1 amplifier, feeding a rotatable TH3 Mark III tri-band antenna. Station 2 operated phone and CW on the WARC bands. It was also used for the 40, 80 and 160 metre skeds with local VK amateurs. This station consisted of an IC706 transceiver, Hale headset, MFJ 949E tuner, a Riffletech rotatable WARC band dipole and an 80 metre inverted V with the feed point at about 15 metres.
Here we are at Baudin Rocks. We've got pile-ups galore on 10 megs.
Station 3 operated only on CW. By using the high-gain Patriot AV640 vertical, it was possible to operate on all bands from 40 through to 6 metres. This station consisted of an FT100 transceiver and a Metron MA1000 solid-state amplifier. All of the stations were powered by MFJ switch mode power supplies, and there was an assortment of homemade copies of the W3 NQN bandpass filters, which allowed all 3 stations to operate simultaneously. The main power source was a Honda EU20i petrol generator, with a Honda EU10i as a backup. After one full day on the island, the weather decided to test the expedition out. Our main operating tent was quite large, but due to having curved sides, this helped a lot in reducing the wind resistance. Adding extra tent pegs around the main operating tent only partially secured it, but once some of the water bottles and waterproof drums were buried in the sand and used as guy rope supports, this secured the tent and allowed us to get back to operating radio.